Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. Got Justin Wells with me as always. Doing this, you and me, just like the old school days. We've always had some fun podcasting together. We get to hit a lot of different topics today, and I've still got my winter wear on. I've got 2 layers, 3 layers on. I'm trying to stay warm, and you just got the one thermal on up there.
I'm in here sweating, which tells me the heater is on too much. I don't run the heater a whole lot anyway, but it's 19 degrees outside, so I might as well. But I'm in here. I don't like running the heater, Joe. I'm a cold-natured dude. I don't like running the heater, but I've got it nice in a good little spot right now.
Yeah, I was not ready for flurries this morning, but here we are.
I saw Paulie broke out the big gear, the winter wear.
Yeah, we thought, oh man, she's going to outgrow this thing before we ever get a chance to use it. And lo and behold,
that's why you use it. There you go.
It's 19 degrees, so we made that work. We're in the thick of the off season. We can talk hoops. We can talk recruiting. We got some great updates today, both from Justin, from Charlie, even from On3 Steve Wiltfong. We got some, playoff insight. That seems to be the topic of the day. Changes are coming to the college football playoff.
Yeah.
They're going to benefit Texas, it feels like. I know Paul Wadlington wrote something that it may put Texas behind some Big 12 teams that may not be deserving. But I'm hard-pressed to think that an automatic bid is bad for the Longhorns. It's going to be fine. Texas could be in contention. But it's one of those things where I mourn a little bit for college football. But make sure you get your questions in. We'd love to go through them. We'll be here for about 30, 40 minutes or so. But let's talk about the playoff. That is the big topic right now. SEC and Big Ten commissioners, so Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, they were there in New Orleans today talking with SEC and Big Ten athletic directors. And the topic, of course, is the college football playoff going forward. We know 2025 is going to look like 2024. 12-team playoff, 4 automatic bids to the 4 highest-seeded conference champions,
right?
1 for the G5, that type of thing. But, Justin, the future starting in 2026 may look a lot different, and it's going to be up to whatever the SEC and Big Ten want, it sounds like.
Yeah, I feel like they're saying the right politically correct things. We do want to hear the voices of the other commissioners at the other conferences, the ACC, the Big 12, and your Mark and those guys have already chimed in on a handful of this. And the seeding is definitely something we're going to get into in a minute. But something we talked about off the air, the SEC and the Big 10, they control this format in 2026. And there's going to be some other teams and conferences and universities and athletic directors that don't really like that. I could see some pushback, but I don't think they're going to have the stroke to hold it back. You got to understand, the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC control 75, 80% of the TV revenue. And so I think that's significant. But the big thing is getting those automatic qualifiers. There was mentioning a potential go to a 14-team playoff in 2026 with 13 automatic qualifiers. And so I feel like early on, we don't have a big enough sample size yet. Could we adjust the seeding? Absolutely, because I thought we saw too many blowouts early in the playoffs, and that's something that you can tinker with. But, man, what they're talking about potentially doing in 2026, which also ties into the SEC going to a 9-game conference schedule, it ties into potentially doing an alignment schedule with the Big Ten, maybe some crossover games as well. My main takeaway is there are a ton of people working behind the scenes to try to make this product the absolute best for everybody that's involved. You said it, 2025 is going to look a lot like 2024. I think the seeding is going to be changed a little bit, but in 2026, the SEC and the Big Ten guys, they're going to start directing this thing in their direction.
Let's start with 2025. Since that's the upcoming season. Like I said, I think it's going to still be 12-team. But, we can 2026 could be 14. That's all the automatic bid stuff.
Right.
2025, what the issue is to make any single change to the 2025 college football playoff. It won't just take the SEC and the Big Ten trying to swing on through. It's going to take every conference commissioner from Greg Sankey all the way down to the Pac-12 somehow still has a commissioner, but all the way down to the MAC and Sun Belt commissioner and Notre Dame's athletic director to make a change to the 2025 playoff. All of them have to vote for it. And as our buddy Chris Bennett mentions, I don't know if Yormark is going to sue, but there is no way that Brett Yormark is going to risk his
giving up that money.
Having a bye. Like, having that bye was a big deal for Arizona State because it means they're in a New Year's 6 or New Year's whatever bowl game. Eyes, money, that's what it all comes down to. So sure, the SEC, and even though it makes sense after what we saw with Boise State getting a 3 seed, which they're not the 3rd best team in the country.
True.
Arizona State was not the 4th best team in the country. I understand they had to do that to broker things, but like the fact that that was there was the most controversial part. But I don't think there seems to be enough momentum to change that, to get unanimity from all the conference commissioners and Notre Dame's athletic director to change it for 2025.
I don't think you're exactly right. It's not going to change. You're not going to mess with the Big 12 and the ACC are not. They already know the Big 10 and SEC are about to run this thing in 18, 19, 20 months. They're not going to mess with their cash cow now. They're not going to lose that opportunity. If Arizona State or those other guys had to play earlier in the playoff, you don't know what would happen. That was one of the hottest teams in college football going into the playoff, but still, you don't know what's going to happen. I just feel like Brett Yormark is going to be against everything the SEC is for. Like, it almost feels like his MO in life. So, yeah. Go ahead.
Yahoo, I'll keep going. Our connection's messing up. But Yahoo, Ross Dellinger has a quote from Yormark. Says, "I do not have the appetite to give up any financial reward that comes with a bye," Yormark said, mentioning the $8 million reward that Arizona State got for him in his conference this year for advancing to the quarterfinals. So you're not going to see – and that's their job. That's Brett Yormark and
that
Jim
would be
Phillips'
bad
job.
business otherwise.
Yes, that's their job to not do that, to not let that happen. So it sounds like the 2025 playoff is going to be about the same, but the big changes could be coming not just in college football in the SEC, but in the college football playoff in 26. And that was also what was discussed a little bit in New Orleans today.
Yeah, one of the takeaways is obviously the 9-game schedule. You and I, we've been reporting that, I felt like, for at least a few weeks. We've been talking about it behind the scenes for maybe a couple of months. But that looks like that's it. I like the taking away the cupcakes. And I understand why the smaller resource schools would be against that, because you might be giving them an extra L because they don't get that cupcake, which is seemed like a tradition in the SEC in November. From a Texas standpoint, we don't care. Texas is one of the best scheduling teams in college football, if not the best. They're going to play a couple close schools in proximity that may not be big schools, but the cupcake stuff, once conference play starts. There's no more gimmies. A lot of those November games are buys, essentially. You're playing the third string. You're getting – now those other schools are getting paid, but I think you would see a separation in the SEC, which there already is a little bit of one of the haves and the have-nots. It's not as big a margin as in other conferences, obviously. But the SEC, I love the taking away cupcakes idea, which honestly, it wouldn't affect Texas. That's why, from a personal standpoint.
One of the things that you have to think about when you're looking at the SEC schedule is that there is a rule that teams have to play a power conference opponent in their non-conference play. Texas goes the Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama before they move. Right. They go that route. You have other teams like Ole Miss that play Wake Forest, and they played a FCS team. But there is a different category, and you have to look at Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. Georgia's in their own category because they're Georgia. But all those teams have in-state rivals in the ACC. That satisfies for that for them. And Kentucky's going to play Louisville. South Carolina's going to play Clemson. Clean old-fashioned hate isn't going to get canceled. Florida State isn't going to get canceled. And that presents, a chance for a loss. And if you're a team like, I know South Carolina's looking up, but if you're trying very often just to make a bowl, or if you're Kentucky just trying to make a bowl, you're going to put the other 3 games as to being pretty easy for you.
No question.
Just so you have to win 3 out of 5 SEC games in order to make a bowl and get that money in a time when everybody's looking for money. And South Carolina plays, I think, 10 power conference teams this year, because I was listening to Split Zone Duo, a different podcast. They play Virginia Tech in like a Beamer callback, and then they have to play their 8. They have to play their 8 SEC games, and then they have to play Clemson. So you're going to see teams, even though, as we reported, and I think it continued to come out today, that the momentum for 9 is building, especially if you maybe add an idea to always have a little scheduling agreement with the Big Ten. And now that, you're going, I think in the case of this, it helps build like, okay, this is big boy football. And I like the rest of college football, but it's like you're playing 10 power conference games, and 10 of them are against teams from the best conference in college football, the best 2 conferences. So the one thing is, and I'm not sure if you saw Paul's article today, but his kind of point is maybe the SEC's being really nice and only asking for 4, and same with the Big Ten.
That's what I noticed too. It's an extra 1 or 2 teams in the conference, but the SEC, there's nobody better than Greg Sankey at looking out for the SEC. And to that extent, you can give credit to Tony Petitti up at the Big Ten as well. They to me, it's transparency is what it is. It's more of a level playing field, even though it's really not a level playing field. It will feel like one because you're scheduling uniformity. And to me, that's not a bad thing. If that's the direction they go, and they can get an automatic qualifier in the playoff, and potentially even more than that, if someone has a great year, I don't know. I think it just leads to a better playoff. Again, we have such a small sample size, and how many times have we already changed this playoff format? This is what, the second or third time that they've changed it. And there's going to be another change in 26, like we were talking about. So I'm a little leery of that. But what's crazy is that, there's so much of this going on. And then you still have, and we'll touch on this in a bit, the House settlement stuff. The SEC directors, athletic directors met Monday or Tuesday to talk about that as well, because there's a lot of that stuff going on. But right now, they're just trying to figure out how to make everybody happy. But the problem is you'll never make everybody happy. And the only person you need to worry about are the fans. If you can make the fans happy, that's what makes this thing tick and roll, in my opinion.
Before we keep on going, got to show some love to one of our sponsors. That is David McClellan, which fitting as the SEC swimming championships are going on.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
Thank you to David McClellan. Sunday games. I was asking. They were mentioning the last time Texas played an FCS team.
Sam Houston State.
The FCS didn't even exist. It was Division I AA.
Yeah.
And What
Bomar at Sam Houston State transferred there by then?
I think so. So
that was a fun recruitment.
Yeah. I always chuckle when I drive by Big Red Sports and Imports. This is a good one from Queen Bee. Will they start making all non-conference games at the beginning of the season for all the teams? I've not heard that aspect come up regarding the move to 9 conference games. I'd like to see that happen, removing the late season cupcakes in conjunction with the 9 conference games. I know what Steve Sarkisian likes, and he has said this on record, and obviously guys can change their mind. He likes having the 4 up front. He likes having it like it was last year with Colorado State, Michigan, ULM, UTSA. This year it's
like it's been with Texas forever. Right. I mean, for the longest, at least.
I mean, what was it? Chris Bennett, you'll chime in like, oh, yeah, they played FAU late in the season at some point, which they did. I remember.
They did. That was 2010, I believe.
Yeah. So, oh, man.
So they got that W, hoping that they would beat A&M, I think, the next week or two to get into the bowl eligibility, and just didn't happen.
So one of the things that has this this talks about is, again, that ACC, SEC teams, those 4 that have that rivalry, that sometimes causes them to have to move up SEC play a little bit earlier than everybody else. Like Georgia, they played week 2, and they were done by when Texas was playing the Arkansas game. Georgia was playing their last SEC game, I think. Or something along those lines. Like that
sounds like an unfair advantage if you're getting that sort of break in late November before you're getting ready to make a playoff run.
Right. And so I mean, again, Georgia Tech is what it is, but yeah, they played a lower tier school. I don't think the conferences have enough sway is not the right word. I don't think they're going to meddle in the way teams schedule.
Well, you mess with rivalries. Like, doesn't South Carolina and Clemson play at the end every year?
Correct. All those ACC rivalries with SEC teams are at the end.
Right. And so you don't want to mess with tradition too much, because this sport has already messed with it a lot.
And so you're also not going to get a lot of these teams to agree to say, okay, we'll play all the 4. Like, I think it's better that way, because I love the idea of, like they were in the Big 12, just going straight through with 9 games to end. But
it made it easier as a covering track. Right, because you could figure out, okay, if they win this, then they'll win. They'll get the SEC championship. If they lose this, they're a game and a half out. It's just easier for us to quantify.
So it'd be cool, and teams can go that way, however they want. But I don't think there's going to be enough to, make that change. And I've heard Jimbo Fisher make this argument before, and before anybody starts laughing, it does make a lot of sense. NCAA football is the best example of trickle down economics I can think of, because how much did it cost for? I don't know how much it cost, but I know Texas paid ULM a couple $1 million to play in 2024. I got the contract at some point, and I can't find where it is. But
I didn't realize it was that much.
At least a couple. That's a big.
That's a lot when you're talking about the way these guys change money with this.
And and then when you think of how, what was it? I mean, Bama played the Citadel one year, and maybe that's not the best
year before last.
Yeah, like LSU plays. I think they played Nichols, which is where the Manning passing
or McNeese.
Yes,
or both.
So
it's in Thibodaux, Louisiana.
That money that LSU pays to Nichols or McNeese needs to run their athletic department.
Immensely needs that money.
And that's when you hear about buy games for basketball. Like Texas is very generous with their buy games, considering most of their non-conference schedule in men's basketball was buy games. Like that's how those programs survive. And so if you start removing some of those, it's going to have a downstream effect on the rest of the sport. And, hey, it's Texas. They're going to be fine. They're making –
Jimbo had a point.
They're making $300 million. But, yeah, Jimbo did have a point. But, I mean, I want to see 9 conference games just because another aspect of it for Texas is it removes for fans, for the team, and for, just balance, it removes the imbalance where, last year, what was it? Texas played 3 road games. They played A&M, they played Arkansas, and they played Vanderbilt. And then they played 4 home games and then the neutral site.
Right.
Next
they were
year,
the road team and the neutral side. Yeah.
Right. But still, it's in Dallas. Next year, they got to play 4 road games. Got to go to Georgia, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and I'm missing one more. Florida. They get Vanderbilt. Oh, and Georgia. Right.
They go to Florida. They go to Florida. They go to Georgia. Vanderbilt's at home. They go to Kentucky, and they go to
Mississippi
State.
So they get 4 on the road, 3 at home, and then neutral site again. If you go to 9 conference games, you get 4 and 4. It almost even allows you that flexibility to do those big non-conference games like they're doing this year with Ohio State that they have going forward with Notre Dame.
Which I think is great for the sport. You know,
Right.
we're all excited in August, September for college football anyway. Then you're going to throw Texas, Michigan, the reigning national champions, into a game. And then the beginning in August in September, you're going to give us Texas and Ohio State, a rematch of the college football semifinal. I think that's perfect for the sport.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is a lot of excitement to capitalize on. But I'm a fan of, like Chris Bennett says, I like how Texas schedules.
I think Mac Brown's responsible for that. I remember always thinking Mac Brown is always going to schedule a team they can beat, a team that's going to challenge them, and the team that gets them ready for when Big 12 play starts. But at the end of the day, with 2025, I think the seeding is going to change. I think there's going to be something to the.
You think everybody's going to vote for it? That's the thing.
I just think
2026 for sure. 2025, I don't.
For sure. But here's the thing. Okay, and you're right. You know, like we said earlier, you know, Yormark and those guys don't want to give up that money. But man, I think the SEC and Big Ten could be persuasive because I think there's going to be backlash again from the fans. Look, you know what was the worst thing that happened during the selection and in the playoff seeding was Reese Davis trashing it as he's reporting it. Fans are going to double down on that. And like we said earlier, probably not going to change this year, but I think there's going to be some pressure. I think there's going to be some of that momentum. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out.
One other thing is I remember I read an article. It was the one I based a story off of with what Dellinger reported when he talked about the momentum for 9 games is that Indiana football has never been good, and they just went to the playoff. And I know they got beat pretty good by Notre Dame, but that still brought in a lot of notoriety for Indiana. Yeah. It brought in, you know, they had to split it with the Big Ten, but it brought in some money for Indiana. And there are probably some other teams throughout the conference in that league thinking like, oh, I can do that.
We can.
Yeah. Like you don't think PJ Fleck doesn't think he can row the boat to the playoffs? Bielema?
Right now, Minnesota is looking at about 35 transfers from James Madison because they think that's the recipe.
Bielema's got most everybody coming back from a 9-3 team. Like
that's going to be a top 15 team, Joe.
Yeah, like the playoff has its ups and it has its downs, but like a lot of the ups is teams think they can compete, and they legitimately can, especially when they see that. You want to talk a little bit of recruiting real quick? I know we put that
load me up.
We got to do that. You had some intel earlier today, and it has to do a little bit with what we got with an assist from Steve Wiltfong, one of my favorite prospects in the 2026 class, who I think had released a top schools list that didn't include Texas. Texas circled back. The kid circled back. Blaine Bradford from Baton Rouge Catholic will take an official visit to the Longhorns. And this is someone who this is a guy you make LSU sweat for, without a doubt.
You do. You know, Texas was in really big with 2 out-of-state safeties that I really liked probably 3 or 4 months ago. Braylon Womack, which I believe he's maybe Mississippi, maybe Georgia, and he loved Texas. He even talked to us about it, didn't put him in the list. Then you had Blaine Bradford, which I thought was going to be a tough pull to begin with. But after what I saw, what they did with Derek Williams, they did with Arch Manning, a few other guys down there in Dubuque, they're going to be just fine. As long as Terry Joseph's there, they're going to be just fine. Bradford's the one that you're going to have to fight. But you know what? It's a new day and age. Taking kids out of Louisiana isn't the chore that it was even 3 or 4 years ago. And you know, Brian Kelly's doing a pretty good job there. But if you were to ask LSU fans, they're not happy. They're not happy at all because Alabama had already been coming in and grabbing a few people. Lane Kiffin would sneak out 1 or 2 a cycle. Other teams in the SEC would as well. Now you've got Texas hanging out in Louisiana. They don't like that. Blaine Bradford's a kid. They're going to have to pull him from LSU. I think that's going to be the biggest one. Kind of similar to Jabari Mack, who's taking an official visit mid-June as well, wide receiver. He's another one from New Orleans that I think LSU looks good. He was actually from Louisiana. And so there's always that in-state tie in the Pelican State that just holds on to these recruits. But huge Blaine Bradford fan. I mean, this is a guy that comes in and probably plays as a freshman wherever he goes. He's that sort of impactful type of guy. And then a couple new offensive linemen, Samuel Rosenborough. I think I said that right.
Roseboro.
I think I said that right. Man, he's like a top 50 kid in the country. He's got family actually in Texas. And so I think that gives them a little bit of an advantage. And then a Samuel Yatu, which is a big kid out of California, big offensive lineman. It's one of those things where the official visitor list we keep adding guys in, and that's why you got to check it InsideTexas.com all the time. And we're doing this in February, which feels like months and months away from the actual visits. But I think it's Texas positioning themselves because they're not pushing for many of these kids. They haven't in the last 3 or 4 years, and they're damn sure not going to do it after going to the playoff for the second consecutive year and signing the number 1 class in 2025. They're going to cherry pick. They're going to take their time. That's Blaine Bradford. There's some good safeties in state. I love Isaiah Williams, Fort Bend Marshall. Absolutely love that kid. I love Jordan Deck, kid out of Frisco Lone Star that's been kind of building up here lately. But I'm telling you, Blaine Bradford's different. He's Jonah Williams different.
I think I don't know enough about him to put the Jonah Williams comparison together.
But I just meant from an impactful, big, athletic, kill you type guy.
Remember, what I do know is that Texas, for a little bit, recruited Jonah Williams as a linebacker. And then
didn't last long.
Blake Gideon got involved, started recruiting him as a safety. The whole program got involved, but then the whole program said, you're a safety. I've had some people tell me that Bradford's got the versatility to, he wouldn't look super out of place playing a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage is the way it was kind of.
He's a big kid. And he's got some Landon Collins to him. Like he is a big, thick, filled out kid.
So I think he's got a little brother too. Might be a baller.
They all do.
Who knows? We got a long way to go with that one.
The biggest thing from that intel, I got to say it, the biggest thing from that intel post is Boobie Feaster has not set up a Texas official visit. They tried to, and it didn't get done yet. And I want you guys to come see us at InsideTexas.com. I put some more details into that recruitment. That's something we're going to have to watch play out. That visitor list is updated. If you want to know who's coming and who's going, we've got it for you. But the one with the new reclassified Ethan Boobie Feaster out of DeSoto, it's going to be interesting to see how that does. They wanted to come take an OV in May. That's not going to work. That one's got some twists and turns, but that's recruiting, and that's why we have to do it every single day because you never know. But come see us because I'm telling you, that official visitor list is getting really, really nice.
Until some laws and rules change in Texas, you're going to see a lot of kids maybe accelerate their timeline to get to college earlier.
Three top targets from 2027. The 3 top players, all reclassified.
Yep.
And I can tell you this much. The 3 players, it wasn't their idea.
Crowell, Feaster,
and Mark Bowen out of Modern Day.
Yeah.
I can just tell you it wasn't their idea, and I'll let you read between the lines.
Get one more ad in here before we keep going. Show some love to Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512 784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
Our boy Gaddis is on it today.
Yeah, there we go. Gaddis. Speaking of, this is an interesting one. Oh my gosh, that's our buddy SEC Mike with a little bit of makeup on there. That's a funny picture. I think Mike would.
I thought that looked like Ryan Brauninger.
No, that's SEC Mike Bratton.
I know. Is that the unfiltered one?
No, that's
no. There's so many of those, Joe. You're on one of them a lot.
I know.
You were talking some baseball. It was good.
But this is one that's relevant now that there's been a coaching change at the position.
Yes.
Odds signed 2 of the top 4 running backs in state, and I'm going to try to look up real quick. I know
I can tell you who they are.
Well, I know. Well, the 3 big ones are Edwards, Osborne, Ball. Who else am I forgetting?
Jonathan
Hatton, okay.
And then Davian Gross, who is an athlete. He's not really running back. He's not really receiver. He's just one of the fastest prospects in Texas. Those are the cream of the crop right now. And Ball, that's another one. Ball is one that, he's locked into Oregon. And he actually played some wide receiver this year just to help the team out and wind up becoming all-state at wide receiver. But he's locked into Oregon. He's in there good. The ones you're looking at are Javian Osborne and KJ Edwards. But here's the thing. It's going to depend on who you hire. Because Tashard Choice had roots instilled in Florida and Georgia when he got to Austin. And that's why they went out of state so much for the big backs like they got, the Jarrett Gibsons, the C.J. Baxter, stuff like that. If you get a guy with Texas ties, I'm looking at Osborne and Edwards. I mean, I think Edwards is looking for a reason to jump in this class, and I think Osborne's going to take his time and figure out who's going to be the running back coach before they make any decision. Michigan is the one you're watching there. Jonathan Hatton looks like he's trending to Texas A&M. SMU is also in that one as well. They're big into that kid as well, and SMU is going to wind up getting one of these guys. They are recruiting at a high pace this year. But the odds are good if you have a guy with Texas ties. If you hire a guy from, say, California, that could change. If you hire a coach from West Virginia whose ties might be Maryland and Washington, D.C., it could change. But don't overthink it. Steve Sarkisian and this staff absolutely love Javian Osborne. It does not matter who the running back coach is going to be. That's going to be the number one guy on the board. KJ Edwards is also a big fan. I'll give the odds. I'll give you the odds that they wind up getting 2 of them. But again, it's really going to depend on the roots of where this running back coach hire goes.
I'm looking forward to whenever On 3 re-ranks in state or whenever there's enough updated, because this is kind of the time of year where they'll start doing some film study on 2026s to figure out who needs to go up. But there are a lot of running backs that are in the top 40 in the state of Texas rankings in 2026. So it should be interesting to track. And yeah, maybe we start seeing some new names. But like you mentioned, Javian Osborne is a guy that I think any running back coach would walk into the building and be like, yeah, that guy could play in my backfield. That's someone that they're going to look at and like. Any other if you've got any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Obviously, got to talk a little Kevin Durant today. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you got to talk. You got to see Kevin Durant. Like, we didn't talk about probably the most important factor of the day.
That was a lot of fun. Just to see what the Suns are in Austin. The Spurs every year they play a couple games at the Moody Center just to promote a little bit up north on I-35. Just so happened the Suns were the team on the schedule. And obviously Kevin Durant is someone who has made his love known, love for the University of Texas known, came and spoke. And Spurs media was there. A little bit of French media, which I'm sure is Wemby related, was there. Regular NBA.
Did they ask questions in French?
No, but he asked it in a French accent. Most of the questions were about Kevin Durant and his time at Texas, and how fondly he looked back. And of course, a lot of it has been said before, but he had a very funny way of talking about it. He said, man, me and my 6 teammates, we'd file out of a Cavalier when we got to 6th Street, which is
I drove a Cavalier.
Yeah.
I don't see how in the hell 6 basketball players could fit in a Cavalier.
No,
it's just not happening.
Kevin Durant.
No, it'd be like Bubba Smith in the first Police Academy movie when they had to rip out the front seat just so he could sit in the front to learn Steve Gutenberg to teach him how to drive. Kevin Durant was not no Cavalier.
That makes me laugh
every time. But it's fun because it's relatable. I loved him talking about the A&M game. I used to think those battles with Billy Clyde were some of the best basketball I'd ever seen. AC Law was unconscious for 2 years in Aggie Land, and I always thought those games were outstanding. It was a lot of fun today with Durant.
It was great. He talked about how much he loved University of Texas, his time there, the time in Austin, and how much fun it was just to come back. But I thought he had some very revealing comments about Trey Johnson. And he's saying, like, I see in Trey, a lot of people want to make the comparison. I know there's 5 inches of height difference. But, I put it out there that I think Trey Johnson is having the second best one-and-done season by a Longhorn. And I know DJ Augustin probably changes the math there a little bit. I know he was a 2-year guy, but his freshman year was phenomenal. Along with Durant,
he just had to play every minute of every game, and they just ran out of gas in the tournament.
TJ Ford played a freshman season, came back for the sophomore year. So I know that's a lot of qualifiers, but Trey Johnson's leaving. And I think Durant spoke and said, like, look, I see the want to from this guy. I see the guy who understands what the day in and day out looks like. And, Durant was at practice, I think. They showed a few clips of it. And I think Durant sees, a little bit of himself in Trey Johnson.
Yeah, and Jamie Shaw posted something at Inside Texas you guys got to read about. It was a mock draft, I believe, and there are people talking about Trey Johnson potentially being the best one-on-one ISO player in this draft. Listen, the league is going to where getting guys to put the ball in the bucket. It's what it's been doing on the international level for 30 years. The dunking and all that kind of stuff. Basketball players want guys that can put the ball in the hole, and that's what Trey Johnson can do. I got a one and done for you. He may not have had the best career at Texas, but how long did Jared Allen stay in Austin? He was one and done, right?
He was one and done. He was on a very bad
phenomenal for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He is one of the main reasons they're the top team in the Eastern Conference right now. They have quietly just wiped out everybody on that side of the ball. I want to give Jared Allen a little bit of love. He has grown into one of the best. I'll tell you somebody else, Miles Turner. Miles Turner is the all-time leader in Indiana Pacers history in block shots. And the kid's a shooter. I mean, it's tremendous, but it goes to show you there have been some really good one-and-dones. That's a good conversation, probably a good article. Come see us at InsideTexas.com. We might have to put one of those together.
And it's an interesting time to just be following basketball, men's and women's. And I did see this from Chase. Sorry, we're getting to it about 30 minutes later. Will Kelvin Sampson be interested when the Texas job?
Joe has the answer.
First part is no. Second part is if you want Kelvin Sampson to be the head coach of your basketball program, then you also have to be okay with his son, Kellen Sampson, being the head coach of your basketball program. Because at this point, whenever Kelvin calls it quits, Kellen will take over at Houston. And I don't see Kelvin Sampson at this age with the situation he has at Houston, unless Texas spends money on basketball in a way they literally never have. I don't see the ability I don't see Kelvin Sampson becoming interested in Texas, let alone being a candidate. And hey, we'll have the basketball. I got a cough. The basketball situation will be something that we monitor, of course, as Texas goes through their tournament push. They're on the right side of the bubble right now. They have winnable games, so it should be fun to monitor. With that, good 40 minutes. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, head to InsideTexas.com. I got a cough again.
Get it out. I'll fix it out for you. Hey, come to InsideTexas.com. There's a lot of moving parts right now. There could be some stuff come up in the next 20 or 30 minutes. I don't know, but come see us anyway.
With that, Justin, thank you so much. We won't be here next week because CDC has his town hall, but Justin, you, me, and Ian will be here tomorrow. The deep dive will be tomorrow as well. And then also, I think our guy James will be back on tomorrow night. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.